And welcome to the East County Prep Football Preview Show, Dave. It's week one. This is not a test. Dave, this is the real deal. We are less than 24 hours. If you're watching this, we're probably just a few hours away from kickoff of a couple of games on Thursday, and then 11 games on Friday, another one on Saturday. Dave, this is it. This is emergency.
This is what everybody's been waiting for. Really, is what it comes down to, and I think that with the variant and all that stuff, I think I think we're being safe, and I think we got the vaccines going. Everybody's happy, and we're fortunate here in the East County to be able to get our varsity games all launching healthy, and hopefully that's what remains as we progress through this season. But yeah, heck of an opening week.
Yeah, I can't believe some of these matchups. We're going to find out a lot about these teams. We don't really know a whole lot. I mean, I try to read all the stories that are out there. I try to follow all the social media people. I try to read all their stuff. I try to be ready so we know what's going on. But there are a lot of questions that'll be answered after this week's games, and we'll be on our way to a full season of football. There's no turning back, Dave. You're right. We're all safe thanks to these miracle vaccines. So let's just move forward and be safe. Everyone, kind of keep your distance. Let's get together and cheer, but let's not be all crazy and stuff. It's just going to be awesome. Everyone's so excited. Big look. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm expecting big crowds. I really am. I mean, I think people want to get out there and go to high school football. There are going to be some different ways. We experienced it in the spring, some different ways that some of the teams kind of do ticketing now. Sometimes you got to do it on your phone. That could hurt the gate a little bit, but I think that people are going to be so excited to go to some high school football, especially some of the high profile matchups in town. So our team's going to be involved in some of them as the weeks go along, even a few this week as well. But I don't know. I just think it's the most anticipated season that we're just going to have just a blast covering.
Well, one of my favorites is along with our coverage, and hats off to him for doing it for so long, and that's our good friend at 97.3 The Fan. Coach Quintera getting out there with with Braden and just doing their thing. I know they do most of the North County, but just to hear them on the way back home, that used to be a tradition, really. I'd be listening to them with the post game or in the middle of a game, maybe at the half, being able to listen to Coach analyze the game, and on my way to another game, and it all comes full circle. And as you recall, and we'll get into the actual picks, I think it was about 3 years ago when we had him. We were doing our shows from Granite Hills High School, and he mentioned some, and you were the one, I think, at the sports desk and answering those calls, and he said that they used to even call 7-Elevens to get the latest scores.
Yeah, that's a great memory, Dave, especially of your dad. I'll just take you back. I know nobody wants to hear this. They want to hear all the picks of the shows, but we used to huddle in a newsroom before the internet. And of course, a daily paper came out the next day that was similar to like East County Sports. It just had the stories in a newspaper. It was a smaller newspaper. In its heyday, it had a big time. We say big time, but for alcohol, only like 35,000 circulation that just went all over the East County. So that's why your dad covered, and the whole crew there, and got me involved. You were involved. So many people that we know and love throughout the years. But we used to go through and gather all the scores you didn't have cell phones or texting. You used an old phone, and you'd be calling up coaches or other media outlets. And sometimes you get so desperate that really, it was your dad. He's like, go to the phone book. You find the 7-Eleven. Like, it was like El Camino or something. It was playing El Camino. Find the the one on the street next to there. Call them. Everybody goes there after the game, so they're going to know that what the score was. You got to call within like 30 minutes after the game because everybody's hanging out there, and someone knew the score. And so that was the way we did it back then. But today we do it a little differently. But actually, it's not that different, right? We rely on everybody. We rely on you, the teams, to help us tell the story. We got me, we got Dave, we got some other got a great crew of photographers this year. I will shout out the EC Preps team. They're going to be helping us get stuff too, but we'd love to hear from, teams, statistics and information immediately following the game. If we could shout out those organizers that might be watching, people that are, keeping stats, make sure you get in communication. Dave will be tracking you down for the most part, no doubt, but we get busy too. If you just want to go ahead and make sure we get the stats, or, once you put them online there to the different Max Preps or Huddle, whatever we can get our hands on, we're going to tell the story of this 2021 season. And I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen, at least with our teams. I think some of the big teams in the county, we kind of know what's going on. Got some real heavyweights, but I think our league races are wild.
I want to give a shout out. You were mentioning that on two things real quick, and then we need to roll into our actual picks. But I know a long-time statistician that's been phenomenal, and I meant to give him a shout-out when we had the Vaqueros on earlier, and that's Doyle Barnes, that's been keeping statistics for
legendary
several years.
Okay.
And
I got Doyle back?
He's going to do the home games, and he said he's got a protege. His name's Dane. I didn't get the last name, but I'm sure I'll learn who that is.
Awesome.
But Doyle is going to do the home games. And Doyle, if you're watching, we appreciate it. I mean, shoot, it's pretty close between you and the late Bill Dickens on stats, because you guys, it's just phenomenal how you guys keep up and were exact. The other thing I wanted to say real quick, and Ramon gave a plug on this too. Anybody out there that's watching, if you love football, if you love the game of football, watching it, even if you're a spectator, you want to try a little something different, maybe. I mean, God knows I've tried many things in my short time, and if you like officiating, or maybe you don't like some of the calls out there, some of the laundry that they're throwing on that. Hey, you know what? Contact your local office for the San Diego section, and maybe enroll in their courses. I know they're rather inexpensive, and we're short on officials. So if you guys can make a difference, that definitely would help out the high schools and help out in the playoffs. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, like we did a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, no, it's a great lead in, because we'll talk about the Thursday games first, and they're on Thursday because of the shortage of officials. So, that's part of it, and that's going to continue to go on maybe throughout the season until the schedule kind of gets consolidated with some bye weeks as well. And hey, shout out if anybody wants to help out East County sports, we might have a spot for you there with all these games this weekend. 14 games, Dave. We're going to kick it off starting tomorrow. That basically it's less than 20 hours away, but let's talk about it right away, because I got some special things to talk about with this game, Dave. It's a great game to lead off the coverage. Sweetwater at Grossmont, Thursday, 6:30. The game's been moved. We had Chris Holmes on. I kind of teased him, said, hey, did they pick on the new guy and make him take the Thursday game? I don't think it mattered to Coach Holmes. He's so excited. He would have played probably on Wednesday at 3 a.m. So, but Dave, this game was supposed to be played last season, not the spring season, but the actual 2020 season, and would have been the first game of the season for these two teams, because it would have been the 100th anniversary of that first meeting when Grossmont High School opened, had a football team in 1920. They played that first game. Of course, Sweetwater did win that game 27-0. Grossmont didn't even score a point in their only 4 games that year, but took them 5 years. Grossmont finally broke through and beat the Red Devils. They weren't called the Red Devils back then. They were called the Sweeties. The Sweeties, right? Some people did call them National City, but if you go back into the archives, that they were Sweetwater, the Sweeties, and Grossmont beat them in 1925 as a matchup of 4-0 teams, and Grossmont won it 13-6. They had a great team and won the county championship that year. Dave, Grossmont High, and of course, Grossmont has one of the best museums. They have a whole museum dedicated to the history of Grossmont High School, and of course, the coach. We know. Mashin Field, Mashin Stadium over there, Lieutenant Adams Field, Mashin Stadium. And, he was the coach of that team. Grossmont wasn't very good those first couple of years. Jack Mashin came in, legendary coach, coached him for many, many years. And football was on the way to becoming a pastime for high schools in the East County. But Dave, this week it's going to be Sweetwater. These are not the Sweetwater Red Devils of the 1980s, but they're starting to play like it. They went undefeated in the spring. They are nearly unstoppable on the run right now, although they've been playing kind of down in class a little bit. They won all their spring games, racked up nearly 2,000 yards of rushing, and also have some returning stars on defense. So, Dave, we know the Foothillers had that great passing offense last year. They have Trenton Giles, who was a big, big part of that. He accounted for about 25% of that passing offense, and he's got some great targets as well. We spoke to him just the other day with Ryan Rodick, Geo Burns. They're going to have to replace about 90 receptions, and that's just in the spring, 5 games that they had, but they profess to have enough weapons, and it looks like they do.
Well, it's unfortunate, but it's fortunate for the particular player. But losing probably their most talented anyway player to Mater Dei, which Mater Dei I think was already a pretty good team. But don't count these Foothillers out though. Last year I was fortunate to see them against Granite Hills, but last year was a different year. I think they were very overly matched. They had a great quarterback in Mr. Brown, but Justin Brown. I just think that you had a lot of these players that were burning the candle at both ends. He was playing baseball. He was playing quarterback. He's attending all these practices. I think no matter how old you are, I think that's gonna, any young man is eventually gonna, run out of gas. But not only that, it's also when you have an avalanche of, and we'll get into them later, but had an avalanche of Eagles coming off the edge, and pretty much he had pressure and was under duress pretty much the whole game, especially in the second half in particular. But I think that they've shored up the offensive line. We got some healthy guys in. I think in another Odom, a younger Odom. I think that will definitely make an impact. And spoke lots about their receivers, Geo included. I'm thinking that he might be catching most of those. He's probably going to be targeted most of those games, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. The Hillers, they have a veteran offensive line led by Dauncey Lockett, and of course, we talked to Ryan Odom on that show. We talked to Brennan Sanders. They've got great defense this year. The one thing we've always kind of said, with that high-powered offense that they've always had is the defense sometimes on the field too long, because we know they've had defensive talent, and then sometimes when the games get away from them, that's when Grossmont has had trouble. But these guys, Christian Espino in the secondary, it's a veteran unit there with Geo Burns in the secondary as well. So, Dave, I think Grossmont well suited in this game. Sweetwater, hats off to them, because they've really come on strong, but they're just a notch down. Like I said, these aren't the powerful Sweetwater Red Devils that we remember from the mid 1980s, but they're winning like it. Grossmont leads this all-time series, Dave, 28-22, and they've also met in the playoffs before, 1978 and 1993. But these teams played back in 2016 right here in La Mesa. Grossmont won that one 41-8. I imagine you think it's probably going to be a similar score, maybe a little closer.
I think that Grossmont's going to beat them handily. If you think about it, what was it about? Maybe as recent as 3 years ago, as you recall, Sweetwater didn't even have enough players, from what I understand, and they forfeited a game against the El Cajon Valley Braves at one time. So I'm assuming that they've increased their numbers, obviously, with the winning that they did in recent, very recent years. But I'm going to say that this Hillers team has done a complete 180, and I think that they'll be able to handle the Red Devils. I'm saying probably 35-14.
Do you mean the Sweeties, Dave?
I don't know. Even with the leather helmets, I think those were bad enough, and I'm just hoping that they didn't have. There's no photos in the archives of ribbons in somewhere in there. But interesting information, and it's going to be a big deal, folks. So you might want to check it out. According to Coach Holmes, they're going to have a lot of neat things, and let's not forget the announcer at Grossmont High School. I think he's one of the best in the county. He's so full of. I just think he's phenomenal as far as announcing the games and announcing those first down Hillers.
Well, Dave, there are some pictures. Maybe I can send them to you. I don't think for copyright reasons I could actually show them or run them on our website. I really would like to, but they are some very, very cool pictures. Obviously, they're from a newspaper 100 years ago, but you can actually see the guys kind of crashing in the end zone. A couple Grossmont guys running. Grossmont had some really talented players. I think these guys are a little better this year. I'm going to go Grossmont. I'm going to go Grossmont. I went Grossmont by about 2 touchdowns. I could see Grossmont winning this one by more than that, but I just want to give Sweetwater a lot of respect for the job that they've done and the fact that as long as they don't turn it over, they can control some clock if they can gain some first downs. I expect them to, try to go for it on 4th and shorts and in neutral fields. So if they can eke out first downs, they can keep the ball a little bit and extend the clock. Maybe keep Grossmont under 5 touchdowns in the game. So I'm going to say Grossmont by 2 scores, but certainly Grossmont could win this game by 3 or more touchdowns if Sweetwater makes any mistakes at all.
For sure.
All right, Dave, we've got one more game on Thursday, and this one is at 7 o'clock. Mount Miguel at Patrick Henry. Wow, this is a nice game. Patrick Henry, they're a pretty good team. They're really unorthodox, if you will. They kick an onside kick every time. They always go for it. They don't really punt. That's a tough team to play against, but I think Mount Miguel has the right coaching staff, I think, to attack that. There's no doubt that the Patriots with Coach O'Sullivan are a high-flying, JT O'Sullivan are a high-flying team, and Mount Miguel, they're going to get back to a more traditional, I think, Mount Miguel style. I mean, Jacob Laverdier, we know he was a talented quarterback passing. Last year, we saw he could do it with his legs. But this year, with Mount Miguel's size up front, they're going to look to kind of control the tempo running with their backs, Ruben Hernandez and Tyler Lopez.
No, for sure. And I kind of think that's more of the it's similar to the other Spring Valley team right across the way, kind of a Monarch-ish way of thinking as well. pound the rock and wear them down, and then play stout defense. And if you got the size to do it, you definitely. I don't even think it matters as long as you stay healthy. Like I've mentioned before, I think that that's really the key of who's going to win and who condition themselves well in that short off season. But I am going to I'm going to choose the Road Dogs with the favored East County Mount Miguel Matadors under Troy Starr rather under his guidance. And I'm going to take Mount Miguel by 10.
Okay, great. Well, we were 2 games in, and we're gonna have our first disagreement. I hope that Mount McGill does win this game. Obviously, Dave. They have a pair of 300-pound linemen in Jesse Murguia and Dre Tucker, so that bodes well for Mount McGill. And also, you're gonna like quarterback Jeremiah Castillo, keeping the family tradition going, and he can do it all. He's a player kind of like his brother was. He plays good defense as well. Now, Patrick Henry does lead. They've won both games in this series. They played just 2 years ago. You might even remember this. Henry won the game 40-34. That was in 2019. So Patrick Henry, they won 3 of 4 in the spring. They're a pretty tricky opponent. I need to see more from Mount McGill as a kind of refurbishing a little bit. So I've got Patrick Henry, Dave, by a couple of scores here.
Well, the only thing I wanted to add is a lot of people don't know that Jeremiah Castillo also played baseball with his brother as of recently on that team with Thomas Ringer, and he was one of the brighter spots from what Coach Frank Coit, the baseball coach at Mount McGill, said. He's quite the athlete, and the funny thing is he thinks he's more of a baseball player. Maybe a little biased, but he does wish him well though. Playing this football season behind center, but I think he also wants him healthy, not only to lead the Matadors to some wins on the football field, but I think he wants to see him on the baseball diamond looking healthy too, closer to the spring. But
Dave, go ahead.
I'm just saying, and like I said, I think that even with the inexperience position-wise and a newer team, if you will, I think that Mount McGill is going to pull it out by 10.
I will gladly be 1 game behind after the first day and accept my loss graciously. Hope the Matadors win that one. Dave, look at this. Starting off the season, you wanted it, you got it. Coming off that historic championship in the spring, Dave, Granite Hills is the highest rated team in the unofficial computer rankings. Dave, I'll explain more in just a moment. The defending Grossmont Hills League champions will be replacing that MVP leader at quarterback, but they have plenty of experience to be considered the preseason favorite. It may be in the Grossmont Hills League. It's going to come down to a wild 3 weeks at the end of the season. But hey, for now, Granite Hills is going to open the season with 4 straight home games, including a comparable league champion in the Poway High Titans, who won the Palomar League Championship with a 5-0 spring. So you got Granite Hills 5-1 in the spring. Of course, they lost that matchup to high-powered Carlsbad, but certainly Granite great. And the Eagles, they won openers over the Titans in both 2018 and 2019. Dave, Granite Hills beat Poway.
Yeah, and I believe, and you have the information in front of you, but I believe it was 17-16. Granite prevailed late in the fourth quarter the last time they played, which was 2019, and that was at Valley Stadium, and it was early on the season. I want to say that it was the first game that
they
year
were both
as well.
openers. Yeah, they were openers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I can't remember the last time that the Eagles, it's been so long. I think they just keep putting prolific passers behind center for the last several years, dating back to probably 2015, maybe even further back. With Jake Siegfried, and then we went to Chris. I wish I could think of his
Ostring.
last. Yes, Chris Ostring, and then we went over to Justice McComb, which was, I think, a more versatile quarterback. I mean, he can run. He could run over people like a linebacker, and he had mentioned to us before that he'd been one in Pop Warner, and then of course throwing some lasers as well. And we also wish him good luck at his new spot. But I think that would be really the only question mark is at the quarterback position, just for a little bit of lack of experience. However, they did get a lot of their second stringers and even third string players probably more snaps than the typical team, because they were up on a lot of their opponents early.
Fair enough, because Domenico Tomasello, he did see action in 4 games during the season. He completed 50%, 57% of his passes when he was in there, and they did get up in some of those games, but he also appeared in a few high profile, high pressure situations, high leverage, I think is what they call it nowadays. So they knew what they were doing when they got Tomasello some action. And Dave, the Eagles have some great, exciting returning talent. Junior Joaquin Thomas, he's one of the most dynamic players in the country, in the county, in the country too, probably. But he had 333 yards in those 6 games. He had 18 receptions, which led the team, and he scored 8 touchdowns. He was a first-team All-Grossmont Hills League pick. And, of course, we had Tanner Vielguth on with us. He was an all-league pick as well. And don't forget Desmond Blass is up front. He's a 300-pounder on the offensive line. And defensively, Dave, some big names on Granite Hills. Senior end Zach Burton, defensive back Jordan Glaze. He was only a freshman last year, Dave, and he was a first-team All-Grossmont Hills League. And, of course, we had Jaquale Hodges on the show. Remember, he's coming off an injury. And sophomore Joshua Zander, he caught a couple of touchdown passes in the spring. So, look, Poway's got a pretty good team, and they're going to be Poway style. They're going to kind of grind it out again. They always feature a pretty good running game, and they have a first-team guy at quarterback. They always have a pretty strong defense. But I think Granite Hills has the experience and confidence at home. This is a close game. Going to come down to the wire. It could be a 2-point conversion at the finish. Someone might stop a 2-point conversion. Someone might kick a field goal even. I don't know, but I've got the Eagles winning this one by 1 point.
I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be by a touchdown. And I think what it's really gonna come down to is the turnover battle and winning the turnover battle. I think that's what's going to be key in this one. And I remember we were asking about the special teams, and and they have the speed, and putting Thomas back there. There's always a chance of that big run back. Also, he did it last year. As a matter of fact, when in that same Grossmont game, I saw him run one back. So dynamic speed. And here's a key. Even with newer quarterback to the system, I will tell you, he can even dink and dunk a little bit. And I'll tell you what, I don't have those numbers right offhand, but the yards after catch with Joaquin Thomas are phenomenal as well. And then, like you said, both lines, and then that defensive line, those edge rushers, those linebackers are tough. And then their secondary, as we spoke to the Eagles early on, they're going to have no problem. And I think they're going to be right up there at the top of the hills when it's all said and done. But like I said, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Granite Hills by a touchdown and an extra point.
And Dave, I'll just tease it a little bit. We'll talk more about it later because it was just breaking news really within the last day or two, and haven't been able to discuss it with you necessarily, but and I'm sure a lot of people have heard, but in case they haven't, the San Diego section, the coaches have voted to go away from the max preps rating, just like you've asked them to. And well, you know what? They won out. They want to go back to that old system. They want to dump the algorithm ratings of the max prep, the Cal prep ratings. So no problem. I'm willing to abide by it. You're just going to have, while the Cal preps ratings are very, very, very accurate. They're extremely accurate. You just don't know. Now, someone like me that follows on a week-to-week basis, I would always pretty much know if a team was going to move up or move down, and if they beat a certain team or not, and I knew how it would react. This way, though, with this system, the coaches know what they need to do or what needs to be done. So, bottom line is they're scrapping a very accurate system for a more general system. So they're not going to have as accurate a ratings, and that's no problem. As long as they're happy, I'm willing to abide by it. I'll continue to refer to the very, very accurate computer rankings for my own reference when calling out the rankings. I'll probably still use the computer rankings. And then when we get down to talking about the playoffs, we'll refer to it more as seeding. So we won't bore anybody with that. We'll probably be talking about that in the weeks to come anyways. It's already a kind of a hot button topic. I'll tell you this. I think everyone can agree, and I don't know how our coaches voted out. I say our coaches. I'm talking about our Hills League coaches, because one of the most affected leagues in the county by this is the Grossmont Hills League, because the Grossmont Hills League only has 4 teams. They have to go possibly, and we've already seen it, all of those teams. We're going to talk about Steel Canyon in just a minute, but Granite Hills, Helix, Steel Canyon, even Grossmont, they've got to go now out of the county to get another opponent. Well, what you're rewarded for when you go out of the county is in those Cal Preps rankings. Even if you lose, you're kind of like, you're given some cred, some
travel points
algorithm, right, by going up against a top opposition. Now there's no need for them to do that. They can just, if I were them now, I'm just going to go really look up, maybe go beat up on some weak sisters and not even worry about it. It's not good. It's not good for the Grossmont Hills League, but I don't want to be wrong. If our coaches voted that way, then they're probably right and I'm probably wrong. But I just am a pretty big believer. And I know this is one we disagree on big time, but I will say this. If you go all the way across all the local media people like you and me, more are agreeing with the Cal Preps. They agree that is the more accurate rating, but I don't think any of us disagree if the coaches want it this way so that it's clear to them and concise. Like I said, it's gonna be a little more general. Let's move on, Dave. I don't want to talk about it. All right, but this is a good game. Steel Canyon and Eastlake, the Cougars. This is a tough test going up against Resurgent Eastlake. It was just a couple years ago. The Eastlake, I don't know, they're never going to be down, but they went through a couple of coaching changes. They were trying to find their footing. Now all of a sudden they just had a great spring. Steel Canyon, though, they can compete with any team in the county. They've already proven that. The Cougars defeated Eastlake back in the opener in 2019, 17-6 in Spring Valley. It was the first time that the Cougars had ever beaten Eastlake. Eastlake leads the series 6-1.
Yeah, but the interesting fact of that one there is we even have an ex-East County Brave over there running that program, Mr. Texler. So that's also as equally as interesting. But I think last year Steele definitely was a favorite, and I'm not even looking at the numbers, but I'm just I've seen that Eastlake is resurgent, and not to take anything away from Steel Canyon, but I think Eastlake's just got more of the firepower, if you will.
Well, we do know that Steel Canyon returns first-team All-Grossmont Hills League selection. The junior Major Gibbons, a 3-star running back, he had 1,000 yards of total offense in the spring, and he runs behind that offensive line led by college prospect Logan Hicks. The Cougars return nearly the entire defense, including Adrian Chargaloff, the junior, and also linebacker Timo Rangel. He had a pair of sacks in the spring. But Eastlake senior linebacker Trey White, he's a 3-star prospect. He was the league's defensive MVP in the spring. The Titans only played 4 games, and they went 4-0, Dave. I have the Cougars as an underdog here. An upset is not out of the question, but I have Eastlake by a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm going to actually agree with you on that. I'm going to say Eastlake by a touchdown.
Dave, on Friday, all these games are Friday at 7 now. Eastlake was Steel Canyon Eastlake 6:30, but all the other games on Friday are at 7. Helix is going to celebrate 70 years of football. The Highlanders will announce their all-decade teams from 1970s to 2010. Also being honored are Helix coaching greats Jim Arnies, Donnie Van Hook, Rick Ash, Dave Van Mater, James Cook, and Demaja Jones. These guys are like my idols, to be honest with you, Dave. They're going to have a presentation prior to the game, and any Helix player that's ever suited up for the varsity is invited to attend the on-field ceremonies. Dave, this year's Helix team might try to rub off some of that championship karma from all those great teams in the past after winning only 2 of 6 games. You were surprised to see Helix in these computer rankings anyways, number 16. Do you have them higher?
I guess I'm so accustomed to the Highlanders being in the top 10 for so long, and or even higher year after year. You know, they have all these at least a handful or more than a handful of high profile student athletes, and I just I don't know if I'm in agreement with that. However, we did see the Eagles handle Helix for the first time since 2005. That's just one instance. But I don't want to take anything away from them because they did lose a key point to their offense that could have really changed the whole dynamic of the team and the season, although it was shortened. And that's if Tyler Buckner would have played, and if that it could have dramatically turned the season around. They may have even been undefeated, but you don't want to take anything away from the sophomore. You don't want to take anything away from him if he's going to battle the spot. But I'll leave it to you on the transfer that came in that's going to be battling the sophomore for the position.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of speculation from Helix fans and prep football fans in the county in general. I with all apologies to Steel Canyon and Helix, we weren't able to get to all of the teams. Just kind of came up on us quickly, and those teams are busy, and we've tried to cover all the teams with a little show. We haven't able to get in touch really with those teams to get the complete lowdown. So even at Steel Canyon, I'm not sure who's quarterback. I imagine Eric King played some in the spring, and we saw him look pretty good. So I imagine he might be a candidate to be the quarterback at Steel Canyon. I really don't know. And I don't know who is going to quarterback at Helix. But I will tell you this, and I can't tell you anything really. I'm going on history, right? We know that Robbie Owens has run 2 quarterbacks out there in like at least 3 or 4 of the years that he's been there. We've seen a kind of a 2 quarterback system. So I think with Rylan Jesse, who had some moments of brilliance and also struggled early on, maybe he struggled a little more, but with Rylan Jesse and the 3-star transfer Elijah Ortiz, I would think that maybe Owens may do something similar to what we've seen in the past. Now, the thing is, when I think of a 2 quarterback system, Dave, I usually think of a running quarterback and a passing quarterback. To me,
Right.
I think these guys are both kind of passing quarterbacks. And I think that Helix did have that kind of once before also. So, but they do have Christian Washington, Dave. He's one of the best players. He was listed today as one of the top players in the county. He's absolutely incredible. He had 9 touchdowns in the spring. He's probably the leading candidate for the MVP right now, heading into the season in the Grossmont Hills League. And they also have a great receiver in Xavier Van. So Helix I think, has the talent to move up from this number 16 spot. They also have pretty good guys on defense. Been waiting to say this guy's name, Dave. We didn't have any shows at the end of the season last year, but Cairo Kahana-Nui, the sophomore linebacker, he's already a player to watch, and some stars in the secondary, including Joshua Carroll and elite speedman Adrian Parker. Dave, the Marauders, they've looked pretty good. They looked pretty good in the scrimmage last week against Olympian. Helix is going to be favored to win this game at home, especially with all those festivities going on. This is the first meeting between these two schools since 2009. Helix won that one 43-25. I don't know. The score could be similar here. I'm going to give Helix. I called it Helix by 7. There might be some questions with Helix's health going into this game. Like I said, we haven't talked to the team at all. So I've just got Helix by a touchdown in this one. But they obviously, I think they could win this game by more than that. They could win by two touchdowns or more.
Yeah, I'm gonna with the little bits and pieces I have. I'm gonna definitely and that I think that unforgiving number 16. I think they should be in the top 10 at least. But I'm gonna go with Helix by 10.
Very good, Dave. Speaking of top teams, the Lincoln Hornets are going to host our Monte Vista Monarchs. Monte Vista's got a good team this year. We know that they've got a couple dozen solid guys. They're going to be big time contenders in the Grossmont Valley League with teams like El Capitan and Santana. Mount Miguel, West Hill. It's going to be a great season in the Grossmont Valley League. They've got a great schedule. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be favored in a lot of their games. Not in this one. They're going to be a big underdog. Fortunately, they have the type of offense that can keep this game reasonably under control. Lincoln is absolutely stacked. Of course, Lincoln has the former Grossmont wide receiver Nathan Acevedo. But Grossmont, they share the league championship. They're league champions again until further notice, Dave. That's another championship for Monte Vista.
Absolutely, and Monte Vista has, that's been their key for, a couple years now. You look back 2 years ago, they played Lincoln, and they played a couple other tough non-league games, and it was the perfect formula, and I've mentioned it before, going into league, because that was the year, if you recall, that Nathan Temple was behind center over at Santana, and that full of not just Temple, but Nathan Hughes, and we could go on forever on that. Just so many superstars on that Santana team. Yet they ran into the Monarchs after the Monarchs had not so promising league or non-league game rather schedule. And they just went through those league games second half of the season and really beat every one of them soundly. Like I said, that was 2 years ago, but they did somewhat similar in the shortened season last year too, in the basic formula, pounding the ball and wearing you down, which they do really well. And they have the backs that have the stamina and the size usually to do the same, and even the speed. And then with that offensive line that they were so proud of also, I think that we're not going to see too many passes, maybe to break up the the recipe a little bit. But I think we're going to see a lot of handoffs, and let's leave it to our big bad defense and either cause some turnovers or at least keep them at arm's length, if you will.
Yeah, David, we had the Monarchs on. We think of the last several years, they're great running backs. I describe them as north-south runners. These are guys that run kind of straight up through the hole, using their shoulders, using their body, using their speed. But we had Aiden Roby on, and he had over 250 yards in the spring. And, we saw him play, and he's described as more of like an east-west rusher, where he kind of runs, around the blocks, around the line, maybe more, more pulling situations. So Alex Salceda, what a great guy he was to have on. He's going to lead that line. They also, look, senior Craig Cooper, he's a top two-way lineman, one of the best players in the county. And also making that county watch list was Jaden Richardson, who joined us on the show. Now, he's great in the secondary, but he's going to be handling the snaps. So the fact that he made that UT County watch list today makes me think that he actually can do something special for us on offense as well. Look, Dave, this will be the first time that Monte Vista has traveled to Lincoln for a football game. The Hornets have come to Spring Valley and played 3 times, really in the last 10 or 12 years, and the scores were 41-7, 49-0, 42-7. So I'm asking the Monarchs to keep it within that margin, and I'm going to go with Lincoln by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the Monarchs a little bit of a break, and not so much a break, but I just have faith in that defense and the whole game plan, and those speedy guys. I mean, they eventually run out of gas. It kind of reminds me of a certain Super Bowl between the Falcons and the Patriots a couple years back, and that NFL Super Bowl. And the Falcons were up so by so much, and there was no way. Of course, they don't have a Tom Brady, but they have a lot of talent. But hey, you never know. That might be the game plan. Lincoln runs out of gas with all those high-profile players, and then the next thing you know, Monte Vista. I'm not saying that they're going to win, but I think that I'm going to take Lincoln, but I'm going to take Lincoln by 10.
All right, Dave. Got a trivia question for you. I'm kind of giving it away, I guess, here. But which team has the longest winning streak in the Grossmont Conference, Dave? That'd be the El Capitan Vaqueros. They won the final 3 games of that spring season. They got to share the championship with Santana, with Monte Vista. Of course, El Capitan beat Monte Vista in that game. That gave them their share of the championship. That was terrific. And Dave, we talk about the computers. I don't know if you're going to agree with this one or not. If you go by the computers right now, the highest rated team out of the Grossmont Valley League, the El Capitan Vaqueros. So they're going to be taking on the newly christened Rattlers. They renamed their school, their mascot, and their new coach. They renamed their school, the mascot, and they just named a coach 3 weeks ago. I think this shapes up good for El Cap. Even though Coach Berner did caution me about all my optimism about this Friday's game.
True, and I was just thinking of some of the high-profile players that I remembered with Zambrowski behind center for so many years, and don't know as much about them now as I did the last couple of years, because a lot of those players have left. Does a name change have anything to do with it? No, but after talking to Coach Berner, he shed a little bit of light, though, that this new head coach has got a great resume. But one thing we got to always realize is even with a great coach, the players got to play. You can drop the best playbook in the world, and if the players can't execute, then that's a whole different ball game. So I think that I don't want to go out that far on a limb, but I want to say that this is probably one of the better El Capitan teams, and I have a lot more faith in them this year, and I'm going to say probably since 2014.
Well, Dave, we know that they have we had him on the show. We did a show earlier tonight. Xavier Peace. I mean, this guy, every time he touches the ball, it seems like he can explode for a touchdown. He's running behind a veteran offensive line led by Bradley Larson, who plays on both sides of the ball. And Dave, the brothers Yokley, they were on with us. Saviani had a ball cap on. He was looking ripped. You always say, like, there must be 20 guys on the field. Well, when you got 2 twin brothers and they're playing both ways, that's like having 4 Yokleys on the field during the night. So, look, They connected with one another, I believe, in the scrimmage. Savion takes those snaps. I think that he's okay. I teased Coach Berner. I said, Savion's a great player. He's one of the best players in the county. He'd probably be an elite player if he was playing a different position, his more natural position. He plays defensive back. We know that, but he could be an elite wide receiver. And of course,
Right.
Coach corrected me again, Ramon. He is an elite player. Well, yes, he is an elite player. He's just sacrificing the good for the team. He's a fine quarterback. He shows a deft touch, and he's only gaining experience. It's going to make him perfectly good for this season and this campaign for El Cap. He's just an unselfish player that took the reins at quarterback and made the team that much better. We also had receiver Austin Osterling on there. He joins his brother Antoine as one of the receivers. So I have a lot of confidence that El Cap, look, in the computers, they're favored to win the league, Dave.
Well, like Coach mentioned, and I kind of agree with that. And I've been saying that, after we talked to Elkhorn Valley and Nick Osborne and talking to Coach Estes, talking to all the Valley League coaches, and they all pretty much have the same hypothesis, and that's that it's anybody's league, really. But at the same time, you do bring up the very good point of they were on a 3-game winning streak. Heck, maybe Coach Berner should pull out an Urban Meyer and maybe get Yafet Yokley back out of retire. Maybe bring him back in, and we'd have you're mentioning 4. Maybe since he would go both ways, also we'd have 6 Yokleys out there. I meant to actually throw that one at Coach, but we ran out of time. But definitely El Capitan. It's not so much only just size, speed. It's football IQ. It's, as they mentioned, it's like a family, and they trust each other. They have each other's backs, and I think that's huge when it comes to especially in the league games. But I think the Vaqueros are going to win a lot of games, and including this one. Do I think it's going to be an easy task? I do not. However, I think that I'm not going to agree with Coach Berner exactly. I think it's going to be the Vaqueros by 14.
Okay, and we had Alex Faea on the show earlier as well. He's going to be one of the fastest rising stars, in my opinion, this season. The two-way man. He's a bruising type of runner and also a linebacker. We heard Coach say, sometimes we don't even run him in practice because he has such a high motor that just needs to save him for the game. Might hurt somebody out there. Also, Dominic Denha returns at linebacker as well. So I've got El Capitan too much experience. I picked him by a touchdown. I'm just going to say a touchdown because I'm not sure about Canyon Hills. I'm going to respect what Coach said about doing his research. I also looked up the coach, but tough for me to make a conclusion. So I really trust Coach Berner's opinion there of that. And I think that given what I've seen and what Coach Berner said, Canyon Hills will be fine to get things back going. They never really went anywhere. It's just that things are different with Canyon Hills with a name change and whatever. Nobody wants to talk about that. Let's move on. We want to keep this show under an hour. There's too many games. Apologize to anybody for all our talking. Okay, Dave, how about Kearney at West Hills? So the Wolfpack, I called them the sleeper. Coach Berner said, don't you ever do that again. But I think that I only say that because they did not win the league championship, and I have high hopes for West Hills. I mean, I think they're going to take care of Kearney in this game. I kind of modestly pick a margin, but I think they'll actually win by more. Look, Braden Oberg, guy's got basically 2 years of experience as a varsity quarterback. Threw 4 touchdowns and ran for 4 in the spring. He's got Dylan Snyder as a receiver, 300 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns in the spring. And how about Max Conway and Dylan Freund? They were both first-team All-Grossmont Valley League selections. So I think they also have some defense with Evan Patterson and Trevor Mbimbo. They both had sacks during the spring. And, of course, they had that big upset in the season ender against Santana. So Dave, this is the first meeting since 2012. West Hills won 45-6, but the road teams won both times these have played. I've got West Hills winning this one by at least 2 touchdowns, maybe more.
Yeah, I concur. I think the pack's going to be too much for the Comets to handle. However, I'm not quite completely 100% sold, so I'm going to say West Hills by 7.
Dave, the Santana Sultans are going to head out to the island. We talked about them losing that last game to West Hills, and great job by West Hills, but Santana really did limp to the finish with some injuries. But, they have plenty of starting experience returning on both sides of the ball, despite losing maybe their 2 best players. The Sultans can still possess the potent offense that they've put out there for the last few seasons. You figure David Friedman and Ethan Wright figure into the offensive plans. Dylan Anderson is a terrific 2-way player. He made the UT County watch list today. And Junior Nick Ledger, he was the quarterback in waiting. He's next in line to be the slinger. And of course, they've got big Jackson Dolan up front. One of the guys we had on the show, Dave, was a junior running back, Luke Nash, who not many people are going to know about yet because he transferred in from Texas. He's really a baseball prospect. We looked at him when we were on the show. We wanted to get to know him. We got to know him a little bit, and he's a baseball prospect. But you know what? His football development could look interesting too. They're touting him as a hard running back.
Well, let's not forget too. We're not going to have the most experienced quarterback behind center this year either, slinging the pigskin. So that ought to be interesting. But they sound real confident in the offense, even with their, for better words, the lack of experience at the position. But I think any great student athlete at this level, I think they should be able to play more than one spot. And the more versatile, the better. And according to what Coach Estes and Taylor Estes had to say, they are happy with the gunslinger.
Yeah. Look, when we talked to Nick on the show, he didn't lack for confidence. So that's what I like.
Not at all.
Of course, all these Santana, the brothers that came through, they've all, even dating back to Odewalt. I mean, they've all, for whatever reason, the Santana quarterbacks, and they, that's if you want to be a quarterback, you got to have some swag, you got to have some leadership, and the Sultan quarterbacks certainly have had a lot of confidence, and that comes because of the success of the team too. You can have a lot of confidence when you're, setting records. The last time these two teams met was in the 2016 playoffs. And speaking of record setters, Bobby Wallace, you might remember him, 3 touchdowns. Santana won 44-0. So I think Santana can win this one. Coronado, I think, is a favorite in this one. I actually didn't check the computers on that, but I don't think, and in talking to Santana as well, they consider themselves an underdog. So I have to pick Santana, and I've got them winning this one by about a field goal.
Well, we were just talking about Coronado the other day. I think it was earlier in the week, actually, with Coach Osborne, and not too far removed. Was just a couple of years ago that the Elko Valley Braves knocked the Islanders around, and a little payback from a season right before that. I mean, there's been some personnel changes since then, but I definitely, even on the road, I favor Santana. I think Santana has become and kind of solidified themselves as a contender in the Valley League consistently.
Yeah, this one will go a long ways. I did actually check the computers, and I think Coronado is the favorite in the game. So I'm picking an upset. You're picking an upset, right?
Yep, and I'm taking Santana by 3.
Great, me too. All right, Dave. Proven winner Charles Bussey returns to coach the Valhalla Norsemen after an extremely successful stint with the La Jolla Vikings following his resignation, Dave. Remember, Dave, you wrote that story about his resignation back in 2018. So, look, we know success isn't going to come overnight. Valhalla was 0-6 in the spring, but Bussey, his teams have won at least 8 or 9 games in 4 of his 6 previous seasons, and Valhalla Norsemen have played in 10 playoff games and won 4 of those games under Bussey. So it may take a while to get going. It may take all these preseason games. I don't know. I just have a feeling that Valhalla in the Valley League, where anything can happen, can get things together. I mean, they have Gio Alejo. He's one of the top defensive backs in the county. They have linebacker Vince Crivello, who is one of the up-and-coming talents, one of the top young stars in the conference. He's going to be a name to get used to over the next couple of years. And you know what? Veteran quarterback Tommy Logan, he returns kind of split time in the spring, but he'll be the guy. Yeah, he'll be the guy this time around, and he does have a good target in A.J. Cornthwaite. So also pretty good offensive line. Aiden Samasha on there. He's a 300-pounder. So I think Valhalla can win this one. The Lancers were 0-4 in the spring. So I'm going to be taking Valhalla, I'm pretty sure. What do you got?
Yeah, I think I can agree with you. And I think under new leadership and Bussey, as you've said with Coach Osborne, I think Coach Bussey is the energy bus, no pun intended, for the Norsemen as well. I think that he definitely can get this one turned around. As you mentioned before, it may take a year or two, but he can at least change the direction, win a couple of football games, and really get back to the fundamentals and focus on fine-tuning this machine once again.
Well, Dave, the Lancers defeated the Norsemen by 2 touchdowns in a 2019 meeting. That was a pretty good Hilltop team. They played in a little weaker conference, and Hilltop had to move up conferences. So it's been a little bit different, but I like Valhalla to win this one by a touchdown.
Yeah, Valhalla by 3, I think.
All righty. Dave, the Braves have most of their starters back from the spring. 3 of their 4 losses came by a combined 5 touchdowns, and they are led by a man who made that UT all-county watch list. Congratulations to the Braves, Jaheim Mendenhall, the first team All-Grossmont Valley League selection from the spring. He's one of the league's top players this season. He's the team's leading returning rusher and tackler. Dave, the Braves are going to be taking on Mission Bay at home.
Yes, and I am going to be starting off on that side of Madison. I decided I want to check out that earlier game that we talked about, Poway and Granite Hills, but I think that that's going to be a barn burner over there. So I decided why not check out the Braves and the Mission Bay. I think this could go either way, and I think this could be a very competitive game as well. But as you mentioned, the Elkhorn Valley Braves, healthy, and not only healthy, but after talking to Coach Osborne, their numbers have come up considerably, and not just the numbers, but they stay healthy. They got some veteran talent that should serve them well, especially that offensive line in the trenches.
Yeah, we had those guys on the show. Weren't they impressive? Jesse Higuera, Samir Isa, and Luis Hernandez. Really, really impressed with those guys. And when the Braves lines stay healthy, that's makes a huge difference. So they also have senior Daniel Jacobs, a 2-way standout. He's been a 3-year varsity player now. And El Cajon Valley Junior Joshua McComb, he was the team's leading receiver in the spring. The only thing that the Braves have to worry about here, though, is Mission Bay has a quarterback who's put up some pretty big numbers in Clash Osborne, and they have a veteran offensive line. They're not going to run the ball very much. Mission Bay is going to be out there slinging it pretty good. Dave, just a little bit of series history for you. The Bucks beat the Braves back in 1974 in a playoff game, but they didn't play again until 13 years later, a regular season game. Dave, the Braves won that game. Get this: the final score was 5-0. It wasn't a baseball game or anything. Anyway, Dave, El Cajon last one in 1990 in this series. So the Braves trail the Bucks in the computer rankings to start the season. I think the home field does help the Braves a little bit. I think the Braves will be very competitive in this game. I think the Braves can win this game. I'm taking Mission Bay by a touchdown, and I hope I'm wrong.
I'll tell you, now that you mentioned 1990, I'm going to go out on a limb, and that's because I went to school with some of these. I think no, it wasn't Mike Hickman, although he did take some snaps. Oh, man. I knew the kid, though. He's a pretty tall kid that played behind center, and that was they had a pretty good running game. And, somebody famous in the East County that has coached for quite a few of their teams, too, in the past, different sports, basketball, for instance. Mark Boykins ended up being, I believe, on that team, as a matter of fact. If you recall, I went to school with some of those kids, so I do remember. So I actually somewhat, it's a little foggy, but I think I do remember that Mission Bay game. But I am going to say that I'm looking for the upset, El Cajon Valley, by a field goal.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll trigger your memory at all. The final score of that game was 21-6, El Cajon Valley. So I'll do some research and send you a text later.
Joe Hubarth, I think, might have been
Joe Hubbard. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. Yeah.
He was a
yeah.
He's a big back.
Yeah, he was a bowling ball of a running back.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Dave, run through these quickly. I'm sorry if anybody's had to sit through this whole thing, and they could just scroll through and find their team at the bottom if they just want to listen to their game. They don't have to listen to us preview every game, but we know out in Pine Valley, they can skip the first hour of the show, go right to this one, Mountain Empire at Maranatha Christian. Dave, tough game, but the Red Hawks, I'm going to say it right now. The section's most overlooked player this season is going to be senior Larry Clark. Clark, he, of course, had 8 sacks in the spring. He had 400 yards of total offense. He's going to have a huge, huge year for Mountain Empire. It's going to be hard for those committees, to keep a guy like him somewhere off those all-CIF teams, despite the division that Mountain Empire plays, because Larry's going to put up some impossible numbers this year. It's not just all Larry. We had senior Rod Gonzalez with us. Lucas Spencer joined us on the show. Those guys are great, especially on defense. Gonzalez, a couple of picks in the spring. Spencer had 3 sacks. You know what? Mountain Empire, pretty good defense coming back this year. Hunter Morgan, Chaz Ennis, those guys can get to the quarterback and make tackles as well.
Yeah, a little fine tuning on the offensive side of the ball. I think that's all going to come with experience. I'm assuming that we will be handing the rock off quite often for starters, just to eliminate the possibility of turnovers. And wanted to also note that. Just like Sean McDade over at El Capitan, taking over not only defensive coordinator duties, but also the AD. Same thing over here. Longtime coach Bernard Van taking over the athletic director position also. Congratulations, coach, over at Mountain Empire. And I think when you've got that position, I think you got a little more control, if you will, on how you can do things and how you can set your teams up. And if we look back on the last 4 years, maybe 2 years removed, he did from freshman up. He built a team into a champion. So we're into the second year of possible 4 years of a younger team, and maybe he can do the same thing. He's already got the defense, so if we can get that offense up to par, they might do something big this season also. And as he said, he'll be playing a different type of schedule than you've seen for Mountain Empire as in the past. I think they'll keep the H name in the mix just because of the rivalry, and it's just a big game. But this one here, because of the defense, I'm going to say, and I don't have much information on Monarchs Christian, but I'm just going to say they've played a lot of close games, and I think it's time that Mountain Empire does start off the season right, and they do get the W. And I'm going to say Mountain Empire by 7.
Yeah, Dave, you mentioned Coach Van, and I think you talk about how developing the offense. Remember, their quarterback is sophomore Corey Van, and so he had 650 yards of passing during the spring season. He did have a few interceptions, so cut those down. Corey Van's going to be a quarterback we're going to hear about here, especially at East County Sports, because we cover Mountain Empire. But we're going to help get Corey's name out there over the next 3 years, because he's going to be quarterbacking this team, I'm pretty sure, and doing a very good job. Now, I will tell you this about Maranatha, Dave. Their head coach is Nick Novak. That's about what the extent of what I know about him as well. They did go winless in the spring. The Redhawks, they have to feel like they're favored to win this game. I wasn't sure. Computers, I think, had Mountain Empire by a field goal. I got Mountain Empire winning this game by a point. So go Redhawks.
By 7.
Okay, Dave, we don't know much about this one. I just want to throw it in there. We're going to be tracking this team as best we can. Hopefully, maybe we can get in touch with Coach Joe Mackey. We had the trivia question, Dave, about which team has the most consecutive wins. That's why I said who has the most consecutive wins in the Grossmont Conference. Or maybe we could say who has the most consecutive wins out of 11-man football teams, because Foothills Christian comes in with a long, long winning streak. They did not play in the spring. They were going to play 11-man football, but when the pandemic hit, they kind of had to scrap those plans because they didn't have enough players. Time was getting late. The spring football thing was coming. So now Foothills Christian is back in 11-man football after several years where they dominated 8-man football. They do have a handful of players that were on that 2019 8-man championship team that went undefeated, including Jaden Gascon, Isaac Bartolome, Noah Blanks, Gregory Curran, and Seth Gilmoody, and Colin Perrott. I hope I got those right. This is a league game, I believe. It will be the first league game of the season in the Pacific League. I'm not sure. I'm going to do more research on these guys and get up to speed with them. Army-Navy, they're a veteran team. This is an intriguing matchup. I'm going to go Foothills Christian by a touchdown. You're welcome to comment if you'd like on them.
I think I will say Foothills Christian by 7. I do recall, and it has been 2 years, I believe, since, or maybe 2.5. But I do remember I think it was that championship year that Mountain Empire in the playoffs knocked off Army-Navy. So I'm going to go with the Knights.
And Dave, finally, on Saturday, the Christian High Patriots are going to host the Rancho Christian Eagles from Temecula. The Patriots have a big-time returning lineup, Dave. They should be a considerable favorite in this game. Christian High quarterback Jake Davila, he might be the county's most overlooked signal caller entering the campaign. He completed 70% of his throws after he inherited the starting role last year, and he's got amazing receivers that bring 70 catches back from the spring. Speedster J.C. Gooston, his stock continues to rise. He's possibly moving into some D1 territory. Chris Akridge, we've been a fan of his now for several years, and junior Joey Merritt, he can do it on both sides, right? And how about Hunter Provience, Dave, the junior? He's a great end prospect. He's also a very good kicker. He's starting to get looks from Stanford. So The Patriots won 3 games in the spring. This is going to be a highly competitive Eastern League race when we get there, especially with Scripps Ranch, especially because Joel Allen's at Point Loma. But in the meantime, Rancho Christian, they just played 3 games in the spring, and they played Santa Fe Christian, Dave, which we know Christian plays regularly, and Rancho Christian lost last year in the spring, 51-14 to Santa Fe Christian. So I got the Patriots able to handle this one by at least 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I'm gonna say 21 or more over Rancho Christian, and this will start off their season with a bang. And with the schedule that they got a few that are some tough ones, but they're in a tough league. So, but I think that they will fare well, and I think what's going to help them the most is I think they've got some real athletes, and especially I think they have a prolific passer and a prolific offense overall.
Dave, I want to thank you. This took 75 minutes. There were 14 games. There will not be 14 games. There may be some long shows in the beginning, but we want to talk about everybody. I want to talk about everybody. So thank you so much for doing that. And thank you to our sponsors, Nicolosi's, Alpine Manufacturing, Retro Sports, Al Sports Shop, the San Diego Kings, Granite Mortgage, and Lakeside Equipment. Dave Dickens, let's have a great, great season, huh?
I'm telling you, everybody's ready to roll, and I think that I'm just ready for those lights to come on.
And you'll be out there. Like I said, we're just not even. By the time someone watches this, kickoff is about to go down in a couple of these games. So just great to have. No disrespect to that. Those games in the spring were special. We were honored to have them, watch them. We'll remember those games forever because of the circumstances, but it feels real now.
And some cooler weather. However, I just want to let everybody know, though, a little before we close it out, the weather report for most of the East County, anyway, is the next. I think up until next Thursday is going to be a little cloud cover and a lot cooler. So some great football weather and maybe a little humidity, but not quite as bad as it's been for those poor guys practicing in some serious humidity. I think the Florida humidity has exited temporarily. And so I think the weather will be nice. The lights will be nice. And I don't know about you, Ramon, but I'm going to be running the Madison games.
I thought you were going to tell me the forecast calls for touchdowns and victories. All right, Dave. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week with the East County Prep Football Preview.